And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're going to take a look at Cavemen, The Quest for Fire, from Rio Grande Games. Now, this is a medium weight card game. It's played around 45 minutes, sometimes up to an hour. It's for 2 to 5 players, ages 13 and up. And it's a great little card game where you're a caveman tribe and you're trying to recruit more cavemen to build your tribe, to find different type of cavemen, some that think, some that hunt, and you're trying to find new caves so you can then grow your tribe, and then you're also trying to kill dinosaurs so you can get these teeth, which is prestige, and then also you're trying to finally get some intermediate inventions to then allow you to invent fire, and the first tribe that invents fire wins. Sounds really cool, it is cool. Let's check it out. I'll show you how to play, show you some of the components, and then I'll tell you what I finally think. In Cavemen, The Quest for Fire, the object is to be the first caveman tribe to invent fire. Now at the beginning, you all get to pick your very own tribe. You can pick from the tiger tribe, the serpent tribe, the owls, the bears, or the wolves. Now none of these really have any difference. They're all exactly the same other than color and just artwork on them. And each tribe comes with its very own caveman and or cavewoman and a cave. Now this game is started with 4 people. And what we have here is we have essentially the 4 tribes here. We have the bears, the owls, the serpents, and the tigers. And at the beginning of the game, we fill up a card pool. In this case, 9 cards. That's how many cards you do for 4 players. And this conch shell is given by drawing cards, but in this case, this person owns it at the beginning of the game. Now, the game itself is played over 5 different phases. We're going to walk through some of those phases now. We already did the draw phase, which is the first phase. And the first phase in the draw phase is essentially we are drawing all these cards for the card pool. The second phase is the conch phase. So in this case, the conch itself has already been given to this person, so we're all set right now. And then people bid to see who wants to have the conch. Now the conch essentially is the first turn marker. So this tribe will get to pick first and last. They actually get 2 turns in one round, where everybody else just gets 1. So having the conch is really good because you start first and you get 2 turns and you get your first pick. The bad thing is that when you have the conch, you have at the beginning of the game, after the conch phase, you'll have to feed. And when you feed, if you have the conch, you have to feed 1 food per caveman, and everybody else just has to pay 1 food total, no matter how many cavemen they have. So having the conch is good. You get to go first and last, but the trade-off is you have to pay more food. So in the conch phase, it's essentially given to one of the players, and once they have the conch, it goes clockwise if anybody wants to bid to take this first turn conch marker. And the bidding is taking place using these teeth that you start off with. Different amount of players start off with different amount of resources. In this case, we start off with 4 teeth. And the teeth essentially is currency in this game. So if anybody wanted to bid, if the person to the clockwise wanted to bid, they could bid a certain amount of teeth to try to take the conch from the start player. And as it goes along, everybody else could try to outbid that person. And in this case, let's say nobody bids, so the conch phase is done, and this person keeps the conch. After the conch phase is the feed phase. Well, in the feed phase, again, as I mentioned, the person who has the conch has to feed 1 food for every caveman or cavewoman, and anybody that doesn't have the conch just pays 1. Then we go on to the 4th phase, which is the action phase. Now, we're going to talk about the different actions in just a moment that you can take. After the action phase is over, the final one is the discard phase, where you essentially discard this card pool down to 3, and then you start all the way over again. That's essentially 1 round of those 5 phases. So let's talk about that action phase, because this is where most of the game is spent. Now, you can do a couple of different things. Actually, you could do 5 different things on your action phase. The first thing you could do is recruit cavemen. So the first thing is, let's go take a look at the different types of cavemen that there are in the game. So here we have 4 different types of cavemen here. Now, if you see, we have here we have a thinker as the bubble there. We have here is a hunter with the spear coming out. Here we have an explorer with the eye, and here we have an elder with sort of an old an old finger there. So let's talk about how you read these cards. So for the looker, the cost is always on the right. So he would cost either 4 food or 2 teeth to buy him. Now, you cannot combine these. You can't say 2 food, 1 teeth. It's just either 4 food or 2 teeth. And if so, you could recruit this caveman as your one action for this round, and you would take him and you would place him in your your tribe. So the hunter, but the thinker here, the thing about the thinker is he gives you 2 intelligence. Now, intelligence is important because you cannot invent fire without having intelligence. Now, with a 4-player game, you need 7 intelligence, and all the way up to needing 10 intelligence for a 2-player game. So intelligence is essentially the end goal, is to get a certain amount of intelligence to invent fire, but there's a lot of other things going on. So with the hunter, we have over here, he costs 2 food and 1 shark tooth in this case, and he gives us an additional 2 attack, mentioned by that shark tooth there, or the tooth. So he gives us plus 2 attack for him. We have the explorer, who costs 3 food and 2 teeth in this case. He gives us 1 attack, and he gives us 1 ability to forage for food, and he gives us this foot, which essentially means that if we find a cave to get, we don't have to pay anything for it, which is cool. The explorer can get us a cave without paying anything. And finally, the last type of caveman that's in the game is the elder. Again, here's your cost, 3 food or 2 teeth, and they give you 1 intelligence and 1 ability to forage for food. So those are the 4 different types of cavemen that you'll see. They do vary quite a bit in name and look and things like that, but overall those are the 4 different main types of cavemen that are there. So one of the actions you could do is recruit a caveman, and you'd pay what we show you there, and you would add them, and that would be basically your turn for that round. The second thing you could do is hunt. Now, if we look at here, there's an animal here called an Ichthyosaurus, and here it says you need at least 3 levels of attack to be able to kill this, and your reward would be 1 tooth and 4 food. So if on your turn, your action phase, you want to kill this monster, you would essentially just kill it, you would put it in the discard pile, and then you would draw for casualties. So you see, if we were the serpent tribe at this time, we have 2 attack and 1 attack, so a total of 3 attack. So we would be able to kill any monster that is 3 or less. So essentially, if we tried to kill that monster, what the next thing we would do is we would draw for casualties. We would draw the next card off the top of the deck, and we would look at the stone marker here. This stone shows 5. If I have any caveman that has a 5 stone, in this case I do, one of my cavemen would die. And this really hurts you during the game, but it actually ends up being a lot of fun. So this caveman, not this specific caveman, but just in general, if you have a 5 anywhere, you have to kill one of your cavemen. Now you can't kill the leader, and the leader is the one that has a little thumbs up icon. But in this case, I only have 2 cavemen and one's not the leader. So in this case, I would have to discard this person. And since he's a caveman that came with my tribe, I actually have to discard him into the box so we don't get him later. Okay, in the action phase, we've talked about recruiting, which was getting cavemen. We've talked about hunting, which is killing animals. Now let's talk about inventions. So in our card pool, we have a couple inventions that we could choose from. And so in the invention pool, we have 5. So you would need 5 intelligence to invent cave painting. And if you do, you get 1 extra intelligence per cave. So for every cave owned in your tribe, you would get 1 intelligence. This one over here, you only need 1 intelligence to actually get that card, which everybody starts with 1. You automatically get an additional 1 intelligence, plus 1 intelligence there. So that's actually a cool card. Another thing we can do in our action phase is explore. So here's a cave, and if you remember, one of the cavemen type was an explorer type. One of the things he gets to do is it gets a cave for no cost. If you don't have an explorer, it will cost you 2 teeth, and you would get to keep 2 extra people in your cave. So for example, at the beginning of the game, everybody starts with a cave that holds 4 cave people, which means you could only have 4 people in your tribe. But if you just got that cave we just showed you, that is worth 2, you would have 4 plus 2, which is 6 people you could put in your cave. So you need to find caves to be able to put and grow your tribe to then diversify in getting thinkers and hunters and elders and explorers. The last thing you can do is forage for food. If there's really no good cards out there and you don't really have any other options, a good option sometimes is to forage for food. Any cave person in your tribe that has an apple sign tells you how much food you'd get when you just forage for food. In this case, you start with 2, but as you can remember, some of the cavemen that we showed you earlier actually have some apples that would add to that, so if you forage for food, you would get more. This gets really interesting because when the fire comes out, if it comes out, since it's random, it's part of the deck, it could come out at the beginning of the deck, or it could come out towards the end. Now, the first time through the draw deck, when the fire comes out, if nobody invented fire, and during the discard phase, it has to get discarded. And that fire will get discarded, and it won't come up again until this whole draw deck gets out, gets reshuffled, and then that fire will come out a second time sometime later in the game. Now, of course, during the first time, if on that one turn someone can invent fire, they have to have the conch shell. So this gets interesting because, again, if you remember, you bid for the conch with the teeth. So not only do you need intelligence, but if somebody else has the right amount of intelligence to invent fire, and you know this by looking around, you're going to start trying to pile up on teeth so that when the fire does show up, you have enough currency to bid for the conch shell, because only the person with the conch shell can invent the fire and win. Now, the second time, the draw cards have, since the draw cards have gotten shuffled and they've come out again, if the next time fire comes out, if nobody invents it during the discard phase, we could discard down to 3 cards, but one of those 3 cards has to be fire, and this can never get discarded again. And so this sort of 5 phases moves until someone has the right amount of intelligence, has the conch shell, and can invent fire and win the game. All right. I really like this card game. I was, amazed at this little thing. Now, I was surprised, I'd never heard of it before. There wasn't a lot of buzz online about it. Even after I played it, I went and looked it up, and I was just surprised. There's not a lot of buzz about it. I'm surprised because this game is a good little game, for sure. I played it with 2 different test groups. Both groups, we played it, 4 or 5 times, and every time they wanted to play it again and again and again. They loved it. Not one person disliked this game out of both groups. It's just a really cool game. Number 1, the components are really cool. Having those the teeth and the conch, and the food, those things are really cool. I love the fact that, okay, you've got to invent this fire. That's the end game goal, but there's different ways to go about it. Now, you're going to have to at least get 1 cave to get enough cavemen to get there. You're going to have to get some type of those intermediate inventions to really give you enough power to get there first. And then with the caveman, there's different types and different strategies. Do I go for the hunters first and get as many teeth and food that I can and then go for the thinkers after? Or do I just take what the board gives me? Or do I always just go after the thinkers at first and then try to build hunters around them? There's a lot of different strategies you can take, and I've seen different ones win the game. So it's really cool. It just plays nicely. I really liked how the 2-player game, I really liked it. I didn't expect to like the 2-player game as this after playing the 4-player game. So it actually plays well. It plays differently. The strategies are different because in 2-player game, every time you play, every other turn, you're going to have the conch shell, which means you're the leader, which means you have to feed all your cavemen. And since in a 2-player game, you have to have 10 intelligence to invent the fire, when it gets towards the end of the game, every other turn, you're going to have like 7, 8, or 9 food to feed all your cavemen. So it's different because you have a little bit more concentration on food, but you're getting 2 turns when you have the conch. So it's a little bit of a balancing act with 2 players. I still really liked it with 2 players. Now, it was different. So when you play with 4 players, it was sort of a different game. Turn order really means a lot in this game, but I really loved, watching, someone else would take someone's card that they really wanted, and it was like, oh man, I really wanted that. So anyway, having the different ways to win and having the different strategies, it was just a really fun game. Now, with all that being said, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a really underrated game. Now, with all that being said, there were a couple things that I wasn't crazy about with the game. A couple times we did have a problem where, towards the end, we kind of knew who the winner was going to be, where they got far enough ahead and they had enough intelligence, and then it was just a matter of time when that fire card was going to come out for this in the second deck. And it was sort of a race to the clock where the second person was really trying to catch up. We didn't know when the fire was going to come out, but the other person was far enough ahead that it was kind of anticlimactic when he did win. That happened a couple of times in the multiple plays that we did, but it could have just been that we were just still, some of the players were still just learning the game, and if everybody was at the same spot, then maybe that wouldn't have happened. The other little gripe I had was, when you kill a dinosaur, and you have to pull the draw pile to find out if there are any casualties or not. And, you know, there's only 8 caves in the game. And when there's a lot of players, if some of the caves get taken early, you're kind of stuck with 4 people. And, you know, maybe I was going to have my first turn the next time, and the card that came up for the casualty was a cave, which means that card just pretty much got blown away, and I wouldn't see it again until the deck came around. So I really wish they had maybe, you know, had a separate draw pile for casualties only, so you didn't lose some of those really cool intermediate inventions or caves or things like that, and just like blow those cards away just to draw for casualties. But again, those are just 2 minor gripes about the game. It by no way makes me hate the game or not like it. I still love the game. I really like it. It's definitely a no-brainer, especially at retail price of 25 bucks, and on cool stuff it's like 17 bucks. No-brainer for a game this cheap. Absolutely great game. I would check it out. Check it out and buy it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.